This is Ed Sheeran, right? From 2018, which we're doing for Throwback Thursday. My mother calls him Ed Sheeran. So,
Sharon.
yeah. It's like a running joke in our family.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to go see Ed Sheeran?
You didn't take her to FedEx Field to go see him?
She did not go to FedEx Field to see him. 2018 we chose because that's the year that Caleb Williams had his crazy high school championship game with Gonzaga over DeMatha in a wild, crazy finish. And then he went on to USC, and he's become a stud quarterback where he might be still the number one pick. He's already won one Heisman Trophy. He's not out of the running to get a second one. And we're in code red, guys. Code red. So I'm just pointing out the obvious, that if things skid the wrong way, we're going to be talking a lot about him. He's from here.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
I want to be very clear. I'm not rooting for that. Like, I want to see them turn the season around. But I'm just being realistic that what I've seen recently, and knowing that a trade deadline's coming, and knowing that new ownership is going to have a lot of decisions to make, their first ones on the field could come after this weekend,
Right.
which would start with mobilizing the movement of a couple of prominent players. That's a possibility this weekend. So we'll see. Go beat the Eagles, and then I think that stuff's off the table, but we'll see.
I'm all about tearing it down regardless.
Oh, no. See, you always want to burn it down. You always want to burn it down.
No, I just think with this team, I've seen enough.
I've seen enough. It's early,
As
guys.
John Allen would say, I'm sick of this.
Yeah. I also have to remind everybody, they're 3-4. They're not 1-6.
Yeah, but you know this, though. There's a difference between being a 3-4 and losing to two teams you shouldn't. We're losing to two teams that are contenders.
Mm-hmm.
Not the Bears at home when they scored 40.
You make a good point.
And the Giants,
yeah,
who were playing with their backup quarterback and two real offensive linemen.
That's right.
With receivers we don't know.
Guys straight off the couch, as they even put it.
I'm just saying.
And a really good running back and a really good tight end.
Right.
There you go.
You know there's levels to this. And this is one of those ones where you go, guys, if you couldn't get it done against those two teams.
I mean, I'm the one who okayed 2018 Caleb Williams, guys. I'm being very realistic here. Like, I'm being realistic. I don't want this to be the case, but it is where we are. That's all.
The real one is the Bears game. They got kicked into a pit, and they haven't been able to really claw their ways out of it.
Yes, that was the one that got me.
Right.
That's, as I said, that shook me to the point where I can't make it a prediction about them, because if you're asking me what is the vibe of the team, I couldn't tell you.
They had one hand out of the hole at that point, and then with the win against the Falcons, and then the Giants punted them back down the hole, saying, stay down there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Today, they did make a big hiring by bringing in Eugene Shen as what his title is Senior Vice President of Football Strategy, which means he is basically in charge of the analytics department of the football operation. He comes here with experience. He was the Vice President of Analytics for the Jaguars as recently as, like a year ago. Mm-hmm. Prior to his stint there, he was Director of Personnel Analytics with the Dolphins, 2019 to 2021. And he's also worked from 2014 to 19 in Baltimore directly with John Harbaugh. So this will be his fourth NFL team where he gets into analytics. It's not that this team doesn't use them, but I think we all know that they have not been the most robust team that's followed all of this stuff. And so this is the first sign of, directionally from this ownership group, they're going to value something like this, maybe differently than the previous ownership group did and the current staff does. And the current staff will have to adapt to these methodologies as they move forward, and we'll have to see what happens. I think this is a big deal. Yeah. I don't know a lot about him, but his experience and knowing what he does, why he does it, his background's in finance, so he crunches all of these numbers. Look at Jacksonville's team right now. It's very different than what it was even a couple years ago, albeit they did land their Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence. Things change.
Sure.
The Dolphins have turned around a team here very quickly, right? Like, it wasn't that long ago, and they're actually very, very good now, just 2 years later after he left them. So, clearly that's part of this, that they need to find players that kind of fit into modern football. Analytics is a humongous part of it, and that's where we are. So I think it's notable just to point out that they're doing it. I don't know exactly what it means, but I do know that it directionally, it kind of signals that this team is going to put way more of an emphasis into building out that part of the football operation.
On its surface, it also is it seems to be the first decision that really does say, we're in charge here. Ron, whatever you like, we don't really care on this one. We're bringing our guy in because I'm going to guess too that
There is a quote from him about it.
Oh, there is?
Rivera,
Okay.
in the release.
all
There
right,
is.
okay,
Yep.
good. I mean,
There should be.
I mean, right? He's going to say whatever he needs to say, anyways, right? Like. We make fun of Ron a lot of times for over speaking. He says the right things when he needs to at the end of the day. But I look at it as ownership probably is looking around and going, we're lacking in that area. We need to make a hire there. So that's what it screams to
And
me.
you might as well get ahead of it.
Right. If
Because
it's not
hiring-
there, you might as well. Like
Yeah, like what they're doing are the things they should be doing at this juncture. They're looking into a stadium, which I'll get into in a moment.
Yep.
They're trying to make this stadium better, which are the things they can try to do here and now.
Mm-hmm.
And they've made what I believe is the first real major hiring in the football department. They are going to emphasize this. They bring in somebody with a wealth of experience in this realm. That's something that has not really been at the forefront of the operation that they've had. I don't think it's an indictment of all the people that are there, but I just think modern teams have very robust analytics departments, and this team is looking at that and saying we need it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good one. Here's what Rivera said about it in the press release. Bringing Eugene's level of experience to lead our analytics and software development enables us to build on our data capabilities to help inform our decision making. Eugene brings a great deal of practical NFL experience, and we look forward to bringing him into our conversations about the vision of our team going forward. The willingness of our ownership group to follow through on their pledge to allocate resources to data and analytics is exciting for the future of the franchise. So the part where he said we want to bring him into the vision of how we see things, he's hanging on to. I am still trying to sell everybody that what we are doing here, even though the results don't look great right now, I'm trying to explain to you that we do think we're doing it the right way. And, it'll be up to Eugene Shen to figure out, does he believe that himself? And that's not going to happen overnight.
Correct.
And the record also, and the way that they play, and the record is going to go a long way towards, that as well.
Yeah.
So, and
Right.
it's not just the analytics, but you're not just defending the vision of the roster you put together. They do have to execute on the field, and that has not been happening here in recent weeks. Doesn't mean the season's over. It's just, that's where we are. It's just being realistic. about
yes,
the whole
exactly.
thing.
Realistic is the word I would use as well.
Yeah. So there's that. So that's going on. And, as you might imagine, he graduated from MIT and Harvard and all. So he's
shocked? Yeah,
he's one of these guys.
Yeah,
He's one of these guys where I'm not going to question a single thing he does because he's smarter than me.
Yep.
All right. So there's that. All right. Then we've got DC. Now that we have a House Speaker, guys, we could actually bring bills to the floor again.
Right.
Maybe the one about RFK will get there. That thing was earmarked to pass through. I'm assuming that it still will because it's, I think, non-controversial, but I don't know.
Who knows?
And it was the Republicans at the forefront, and they do have the majority.
Right.
Granted, a slim majority, and they seem to fight with one another constantly. But will they get into a fight about this? I hope not.
Yeah.
And then we can just at least get to the conversation of, are we going back to RFK? Can DC make that happen? And on that front, DC has hit the gas pedal on this. Mayor Bowser, this is Axios, which is a major political newsletter that follows DC politics. Mayor Bowser is doubling down on building a new football stadium at RFK, freeing up her top confidant to focus on it and hiring consultants who worked on Nationals Park. The early battle lines are drawn. Bowser wants the new stadium to inject the economic juice, while several council members and neighbors are anxious about taxpayers footing the bill. They should be, because everyone, even she, admitted, I don't know that we have the money, and she's described it as we're going to have to be creative to do this.
Yes.
And there are ways to do that, like adding a tourist tax, adding a luxury tax, adding bonds. There's a lot of ways to do this.
Yep.
It doesn't directly affect the taxpayers, but she already knows politically it's not going to fly if you say we're going to use $500 million of taxpayer money,
Correct.
which is what the price is going to be, because that's what Maryland seems to be offering at this point. So if they're going to do this, they're going to need that to happen. So here's the shakeup. Her top confidant, Beverly Perry, is now focused on the initiatives like this congressional bill to give D.C. more control over the 190-acre site. For now, it's stalled with the House because it was at the time of the writing of this, speakerless. That changed yesterday when they finally announced a new speaker.
Yep.
So now maybe we get back to business. Question is, when does that come to the floor? And that's something that they know and I don't know at this point. But we were basically stalled for a month because they didn't have a speaker and there was no legislation coming forward.
Right.
Tommy Wells, who led the mayor's policy office and would have been tasked with lobbying council members on the stadium deal, told Axios he is leaving city government early next month. So that's where the shakeup is. They're bringing in other people to do that. There are two firms that are studying financing models for their new stadium after the Bowser administration signed a $400,000 contract earlier this month. The results are expected in early December. So Step one already happened. The bill went through committee. It got earmarked and noted up, and it went through. That full bill now needs to get to the floor. Then it needs to be passed. Because it has Republicans that are sponsoring it, you would guess that it will go through. But because they do have a slim majority, we don't know. So we don't know. But let's just work on the premise of everything is lining up for it to be available for them to work on.
Yep.
The change in the bill structure is notable because currently the only use that you could have for it is for sports and entertainment, right? Currently, because it's federal land, which in this case, no change would have to be made if a stadium was going there. But for the city council to be happy to have even a discussion about it, they wanted it to be changed to, we want to use it as we see fit for the city, which could mean affordable housing, a new school, some kind of commercial residential mixed use. They want anything.
Of course.
They want anything.
Right.
And I believe that regardless of whether stadium goes there or not, that land shouldn't be, having what's happening there right now, which is a decrepit piece of property there that needs to be taken care of. Something should happen. It's waterfront property, and DC should have its own destiny with it.
That's right.
So hopefully it'll go through. One of the firms, the JLL Group, which is a major contractor construction group who worked with DC before on the ballpark, is now working with them. Mm-hmm. The other firm is run by Robert Bobb, who's a former DC city administrator who also managed other cities and led redevelopment projects in Oakland and Richmond. On the commander side, Josh Harris has tapped the real estate pro Thad Shealy, who's basically part of the ownership group, but well, maybe he's not. But he's been kind of a right-hand man for this type of stuff.
Sure.
And I believe he's been at the forefront of trying to get the 76ers stadium downtown. They're trying to get a new 76ers stadium in downtown Philadelphia. He goes, he's the lead advisor to search across all the three regions. In his role since August, he's come to D.C. after remaking the State Farm Arena, which is where the Hawks play in Atlanta. And he's taken meetings across town and wants to walk the RFK site, is what they're saying, which, of course, they're going to have him do. Put on a hard hat and bring your rabies shots, because that's what we've heard that's going on
right
there.
Yes.
Let's see. Bowser went to, as they described, the belly of the beast, a community meeting near RFK last Wednesday, and talked with residents who were riled up against the stadium. But of course, they don't want it. I mean, the residents don't want the stadium, but you understand why. And there's no stopping it.
Right.
There's no stopping it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. D.C. has a wealth of big project planning firepower. Nina Albert, the new economic development deputy mayor, oversees what they called sports team. You'll remember that they introduced this group of people that are really inclined to try to make this happen. And they say another name to watch is Scott Burrell, who's the general counsel at Events DC, which is the independent authority that operates RFK. And he worked on Audi Field and was once a lieutenant of Alan Liu, a hard-charging D.C. official who built the Convention Center and Nationals Park. So they've lined up the people who've done this before. The Harris Group has their guy that's helped redevelopments and is a real estate developer. We're greasing the wheels for this to potentially happen.
Yep.
I still don't know that it will, but clearly the mayor wants it. Can she convince the city council to do it? I don't know. Can they find the money or the creative way to go about it and compete with Maryland? Because in the end, Wes Moore has basically said, we will give you the money to do this, and we want it here, and the plans are already set. Just say yes.
Correct. Exactly.
So they've got a lot of hoops to jump through. The Commanders should be and aren't in any rush to do anything with state of Maryland or Virginia until DC's on the table, because it changes the leverage point of all the jurisdictions if it is there. So, but we're steamrolling towards it. Is what's happening right now. DC clearly wants it bad. They're putting everything in line to try to make it happen. Can they do it? I'll believe it when I see it. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all signs point to DC is actually putting the effort in and clearly going through the steps and the process. And I've said this before too, even if it doesn't quote unquote get through this time around, or they have some kind of hang up, I'm still convinced Josh Harris and company will maybe try waiting to do it again.
Yes.
Because what are they in a rush to commit to Maryland or commit to, well, Virginia is not even really on the table at this point. They just hired somebody to research everything. So at this point, DC actually showing a little bit of urgency tells me DC knows full well, if we put something in front of this ownership group, they're going to take it. Because they clearly want to be here, which is isn't a secret, but
I think so. I think they do.
I've told you this.
I know Roger Goodell does.
Right.
I think they do, but they're also not going to take a bad deal to do it.
No, of course. And this is what I will still continually harp on. My number one point is we don't know what it's worth. We do not know what it's worth to the franchise to be in DC.
Yes.
And that means literally financially, emotionally, everything that goes around with all of it. So, I mean, DC, it seems like, though, knows that if they put something plausible in front of them, they're getting the stadium into the district. And also, let's be honest here, too. Like, if Goodell's calling you, the league can finagle probably getting the stadium there, too. If there's some kind of financial thing they need to worry about. Like,
I do think that there's a possibility that if the shortfall between the Maryland or Virginia offer is significantly less than the DC one, I do think the Harris Group will go back to the NFL and say, we know this is good for everybody. This is what they're willing to do. Mm-hmm. Can the league help bridge the gap? Because it would be beneficial for the entire league for this to happen. And I don't know if that's easily sellable to the other owners, but I do think that that's a plausible path where the NFL puts money towards it too.
Sure.
Because they want it to be there.
And the NFL could also turn around and go, we'll give you Super Bowl initially. It's probably not going to be in the rotation. It's just not. I mean, but they'll get one.
If there's a retractable roof or a roof on it, yes. Otherwise, no. And then there's some rule about the size of the stadium, too.
Correct. So
they could probably, there's other inducements. We could hold the draft there.
That's what I was going to say, add on as well. We'll give you the draft.
The draft is
over the next couple of years.
Moneymaker for a city now.
And make sure it's there. So all the money is going to be going into the district. Or we'll have it on the mall or something.
Have it on the mall.
Whatever they need to do.
The stage should be on the National Mall.
Correct. So this is what I'm getting at here, too, is the NFL has a few events that they can go ahead and roll out for these guys to say, we know it's going to bring in X amount of money. They're going to point and go, did you see how many people were in freaking Kansas City for the draft?
Yeah, no,
you guys will get a ton of people here.
The draft is a massive Lollapalooza of spring football now.
Right. Which is just, I laugh at it, but it's crazy.
It's amazing. It's amazing, but it's true, and it's a certainty.
Yeah.
So we'd have the tourism money for that week because they do it over 3-4 days now. You get a week with people that show up is astounding, and it would be in DC City proper for sure.
Right, exactly.
So that would help. A Super Bowl would be a massive help. I think they'd probably tell them the size of the stadium would need to be a certain size because they had talked at least initially about one that was a little smaller and didn't actually hit that threshold.
That was old ownership, though. I mean,
it's all off the table. I mean, Mitchell Rail said this. He said, we're starting from scratch again with it. So all the things about Commanderland and Dumfries and, what they want, I don't know what their vision is.
Yeah.
And until we hear it, they may look at it as, we are just happy having the stadium, and our training facility will either stay in Ashburn or move somewhere else. It won't be there. And they could, I don't know what they're thinking about all of it. And they're probably giving consideration to every possibility here. I do know that the Ashburn facility needs to, and they're aware of, needs massive upgrades.
Sure.
So it screams to me like they'll either raise it and put something brand new there because they have the land, or redo it, or they own FedEx Field.
Yep.
They could put the trading facility on that land and build a brand new trading facility, and there's Commander land.
Been yelling that's what they're going to do.
That's a possibility too. I think all of these things are kind of open for discussion, and then you've got 2 of the 3 jurisdictions that own a piece of it.
Sure. Yeah.
And we'll have to see. And considering, the salaries of the players, having them live in either jurisdiction is a big deal.
I've said that for a long time. That's why Maryland is actually kind of just but alluding to, we know we're going to be involved regardless, kind of, because we know that we can help them out with the facility, and it's going to pay for itself when players start to move out to, wherever they need to move to, because they're all not going to stay in Ashburn and commute to FedEx, commute to Landover.
They've talked a lot about investment with diversity.
Yeah.
Well, these will be a lot of young, largely African-American men who are going to be advised by Magic Johnson, on how to invest. And if that's happening in either one of those jurisdictions, that's good for everybody too. I mean, that's one of the goals that they've tried to have. So I don't have a front runner, but the DC stuff is picking up more steam than I thought it would. And it does feel like there's a part of me that just goes, I think this ownership group just really wants it there.
Yeah.
The last ownership group would have loved to have had it there, but we're sick of the red tape and we just want the best deal.
Right.
And that was going to be Virginia. Now this new ownership group is in. I don't know exactly how they feel, but all things are leaning towards, if you guys can make this happen, we will have a serious conversation, but we're not going to do it at a massive expense to us.
Yeah.
So you got to figure that part out too. So we're a number of steps away, but it is steamrolling that way. Yeah. And, honestly, like, I'm not against it. Them going home and building a state-of-the-art stadium in RFK Stadium, let's go. I mean,
of course.
Hallowed ground, it'd be amazing. It'd be wonderful. Yeah. And let's see if it happens.
Yeah, I think what's funny too, though, is, one thing the team hasn't even talked about, or like we've talked about on this show, FedEx Field's easier to get in and out of, than it's been. It tells me that this ownership group also is now really paying attention to the details, the nitty gritty. Yes. If we build it at RFK, what will be the in and out protocol? Will the Metro expand that stop? Because that's going to be way more fans than it ever was for a DC United game. It just.
Well, there's an RFK Stadium stop.
No, I know that. But so there's a difference here. With Metro, they made certain stops bigger knowing there'd be events. Like when the Nats got down to Navy Yard, they expanded. That's why the half street entrance is there. They expanded that because they knew if we get 40,000 people down here, we can't just have a normal stop anymore.
Right.
So that's another discussion.
There's going to be a log jam, and you can't have people park. We know what the parking situation
Correct. So
is down there.
When it comes to RFK, they're probably going, we're going to have more people here than we ever had for DC United. Metro wasn't the main use of transportation when the Redskins were playing there. So but what I'm getting at here is this ownership group has all those details locked and loaded and ready to go because I've already seen it. We've talked about it here that the traffic getting in and out of FedEx Field is exponentially better than it's ever been. So
it's just silly. It feels like all along it just took a phone call to talk to Maryland and go, we need to do better than this. How do we go about doing it?
So it tells me, I remember we would have this discussion of how do you have a game day experience at RFK if they're going to build it and there's not going to be a lot of parking? Well, I actually have faith in this ownership group. They're just going to figure it out because that's what they've been doing. So
they're going to have to put a massive garage there to start with.
Probably, yeah. I mean, most likely. But the other part of this now too is if you figure out the whole Metro point, people can park all over the city and get there in different ways as possible.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take a break and we'll come back. I want to talk about some of the trade rumors that are out there. And I want to talk specifically about Montez Sweat since his name popped up yesterday through the Washington Post. Brave Boston Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Cap. Throwback Thursday 2018. This is Cardi B. And at this point, Cardi B was going to be my second wife. Then she sold out and now she's not going to be. I'm over her. But
how did she sell out? I don't understand.
She started doing dumb things all the time. It just got annoying. And then she started doing all those, what are those videos with where she purrs into a microphone and it's just.
The ASMR?
Oh. I don't have time for that.
I like her more.
Oh, you make sounds.
I like her more because it recently, people have uncovered she's a huge nerd. She knows every first lady and what they did in the White House. Oh. That kind of nerd. She also loves wrestling, which I love too. Oh. And she's been asked by up in New York, our guy from that likes the Commanders, Rosenberg.
Uh-huh. So come to a wrestling event?
He's why haven't you been to WrestleMania yet?
Yeah.
And so the rumor is because Mania is in Philly in March that she might make an appearance and do something there. So
all right.
I like her more now.
All right. 2018 we also earmarked because that's when Caleb Williams had the crazy Gonzaga DeMatha game, propelled him into superstardom as a high school quarterback. He's already won a Heisman Trophy and we'll just see what happens with the Commanders this weekend because I think it will shape what the future looks like if they were to go and make some moves at the trade deadline, and it probably is a little bit attached to how they perform this weekend against Philadelphia. So this is code beyond red. Sirens are blaring.
Code beyond red.
Let's see. Chase Young was asked in the locker room about the trade deadline.
Okay.
From John Kime, who says this. I don't think about it at all. I'm focused on the Eagles. My name's been popping up since I've been here regardless of the trade deadline, so I'm not tripping about it.
He's right.
True.
Yep.
Montez Sweat was asked.
Okay.
He said this. He was asked specifically, do you want to remain here?
Okay.
And he said, I can only control what I can control. I definitely enjoyed my time here with the guys on the D-line, the people on this team, but I understand it's a business and I can only control what I can control. Listen, I don't like parsing out words, but when he said I enjoyed my time here.
I don't. He probably meant I have enjoyed. And he just said it that way. I'm not going to read too much into that one.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. Montez Sweat initially on the trade deadline said, I can't say this. With everything going on, it definitely comes across your mind, but you try to keep your head focused on what's ahead, and that's Philadelphia. So,
company lines.
They've
both been. I'm sure they've both been prepared by their agent that they share. That they say all the right things. Yeah, I'm not shocked on that one.
It's funny. They both. That's the weirdest part. They probably both know what's going on with each other at the same time.
Right. They're both going to know first what happens with
What's
the other
what?
or them.
Yeah. And they probably, I mean, the agent is telling them, I'm sure, what the situation is. So they know.
Exactly.
This is weird. You know that I know that they know that they know this. You know, so again, you know, I like to parse out words, but when he said I enjoyed my time, don't put too much into that.
Nah, I wouldn't. Like I said, I think probably meant to say I have enjoyed, and just came out like that.
His name popped up officially for the first time yesterday. Nikki Jabala, Washington Post, said the team has received an offer. It was not disclosed what the offer was, and it doesn't say from who, and it doesn't say whether the Commanders are seriously listening to it. Right. It's just that it was there. The fact, though, that she was reporting that probably comes from somebody on the team who doesn't mind that they know it.
Maybe.
So that it's out there. Like, that's how, I hate to tell you how the sausage is made, but that's how this stuff gets out. You know, it's either the agent or the player or the team. And in this case, I think sounds like the team said something like, hey, we've gotten an offer, just to throw it out there and just see what happens when you shake it up a little bit.
I mean, the other half of that is, though, if it is coming from the agent, it would make sense of why, there's one offer for Sweat, but not for Chase Young. That's the same source. So we go back to that as well. Also, I'm going to assume if you're engaging the team in talks with those guys, I'm sure there are certain teams that are going, we'd like to negotiate right now.
Well, I think the purpose of putting out there, if you're the team, of it. So I don't know the source of this, right? Most of the time I can figure it out. Yeah. But if the source of this is the team, it is to field interest.
Right. Yeah.
If the source is the agent, it is to gin up interest.
Right.
Because maybe the player can't say that, but doesn't want to be here or doesn't believe that they're going to get the deal that they want on the other side. Right. I don't think either one of them want to leave if they know that they're going to get a contract on the other side. Sure. But this is when you didn't pick up Chase's fifth-year option, it left this constantly hanging out there. They're probably picking one of the two. That's it.
Yeah, right.
We knew this from the get-go. And now that the team is not performing particularly well, it's hit fever pitch now.
Sure.
So without knowing, most of the time I could kind of suss out where it came from.
Yeah.
My gut says the team told her that, but I don't know. And if they did, it is to generate interest, which means they are listening, as opposed to what we'd heard for weeks leading up to it, which was, we're not talking about that. And I believed them when they said it. Now, conditions have changed. We are at a point where you have to make a decision. You can't keep everybody. You can only franchise one person. And if you're not going to be a contender, which right now doesn't look like they're going to be, well, you got to make some choices here.
Right.
And Sweat's name being tossed out there says, we're hearing it and we're open to it. And the Vultures have been calling them for months because they put themselves in this position.
Yep.
This is a roster management situation. I was kind of arguing at the time with Chase, you might just want to do it for even if it doesn't go well this year, you have him under control, and it's a big bet that you're making.
Right.
But it doesn't put you in this predicament, which is there's two. You can only definitively keep one unless you are going to somehow get deals done. They've been in no rush to sign either one of them. So the idea that one of them gets traded in the next 5 days is very, very, very realistic to me now.
Yeah, of course.
And with Sweat's name being tossed out there, it almost reads like it's going to be him.
I think you could read it both ways, because I think you could also say if it's the team and they're throwing it out there, nobody's called about Chase. Well, some other team would go, nobody's calling about him. We'll call you about that.
Let me put it this way: they have called about him. They have not received they have not received what is a tangible offer for him.
Right. So that's what I'm getting at too, though.
You'd be crazy to believe they haven't called to see if he's available.
No, of course. But that's what I'm getting at here, is that they haven't gotten one. And so that might bait one other team to go, we'd rather have him, and then make the call. So it could be both ways, honestly.
So I'm not rooting for any of this to happen. But because it's there and it's realistic, we got to talk about it. If you're trading one and not the other,
right?
Which one do you want to move?
Oh, I mean, I've said this yesterday and I've alluded to it all week. I like Chase Young's game more than Montez Sweat so far, and especially because if you're going to pay one of them, I'd rather pay Chase Young than pay Sweat. I don't think Sweat warrants the money he's about to get.
I think the money, though, is going to be a tier lower, and I think he has to know that.
I still don't think it's worth it.
It's not. He's not going to get a Bosa deal because he hasn't produced Bosa numbers.
Off the top of your head, who's better in their respective careers, Ryan Kerrigan or Montez Sweat?
Well, Kerrigan had a lot more sacks.
And he had game-breaking plays. He had a couple interceptions, couple touchdowns. It wasn't all the time.
Similarly, though, no one looked at him as a top-tier defensive end.
Oh, I know. But he was still very good.
Very good.
And
I think Sweat is very good. He doesn't have those numbers that you look at that get you these type of things. And there aren't a lot of moments in games where he blew it up and it's like he didn't do the TJ Watt thing. He didn't do, like, those didn't happen with Bosa. It didn't happen with him.
I think Kerrigan was a little more helter-skelter in the way too, because he would sometimes be a defensive liability a little bit more than Sweat was on the everyday the everyday plays.
There were times when he got put in coverage where we would yell at the defensive coordinator and go, "I don't know why you're doing that to him."
I remember his biggest mistake, mainly towards the end of his career, was he could never seal the edge either. Like, he would get pushed inside and the guy would go running right by him essentially. But that was more towards the end of his career. But every once in a while, he was good for jacking up the running back or the quarterback and getting a turnover or getting a tipped up pass and returning it. Like, you deal with that when a guy's a little bit more of a liability. With Sweat, he's not just a guy, because that's not who he is.
Not at all. No, I think he's a very good player.
Right.
He's not a great defensive end.
Yes, exactly.
Chase still has the possibility of being a great one.
Correct.
But, counterpoint, knowing what his now recent injury history is,
sure,
are you inclined to give him what is going to be a bigger deal long-term than you were to Montez Sweat, because he is probably going to get that somewhere? Like, with Sweat, he's going to get a lot of money.
Yep.
Is he going to get Bosa money? I don't think so. I don't think anybody's going to give him that. Chase Young might. If he continues to have the season that he's having, he might.
Right.
Because of who he is, where he was drafted, his athletic ability, his size, and he is going to end up, if he stays on this pace, with 12, 13, 14 sacks. So he's going to have big numbers to go along with it. Again, he hasn't blown up any games.
Right.
Doesn't happen. That happened since his rookie year when he did in the Cardinals game or the Niners game where he ran down the dude and caused the fumble, picked it up.
Right.
Fumble, pick up. He's the one. He and Cam Curl flipped that game. That's the last time we've had that with him.
Right.
He's a very good player. I think he's been their best defensive player. He's been by far their best pass rusher for sure this year. But even with the sack total numbers, we haven't seen their defense is ranked in the bottom 5.
Right. What I would say, though, with Chase, though, is I'm much more comfortable kicking it down the road one more time and just franchising
and do it one more time with him?
Yeah, because we even talked about that.
And it ends up costing you a little bit more. This is why the bet was scary, though, because if you just picked up the 5th-year option, you wouldn't have to talk about this.
Sure.
And it actually is less money allocated to him than what the franchise tag will be. And you can make a decision on Sweat one way or the other.
Right.
Sign him or not.
Right.
Or franchise him and you have them both again for another year. Because they did what they did, they've put themselves in a pickle.
Right. I mean, but either way, you were going to have to make the decision regardless. You were just kicking it down the road. I mean.
Okay, what if I told you someone came with a low-end first-round pick for Chase Young, but that's not going to happen for Montez Sweat? Are you inclined now to pick keeping Sweat and letting Chase go for a first-round pick? Because I don't believe they will be offered a first-round pick for Montez Sweat. If they are, I actually think the decision gets easy for them. But assuming they're not, I could see someone who's got a lot of first-round picks, the Bears, going, this is a way for us to get a talented player now.
Right.
We are going to sign him to a long-term deal.
Yeah,
right?
no, I'd be fine with that, but I would do the same thing, though. I'm not signing Sweat to a long-term deal. I'm franchise tagging him.
But at least it opens that road for that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess my basis of everything right now is I'm not comfortable giving Montez Sweat the money, and I'm not comfortable giving it to Chase either. But I'm more at peace with saying I'd rather franchise tag Chase over Montez Sweat
and go another year with him.
Yeah,
and then deal with this again this time next year when you're heading towards.
Correct. It's going to be prove it yourself again, or they trade one of them, and whoever it would be in the middle of next year. Or something.
Let me ask a third question then. Because you'll get offers for both.
Yeah, right.
Would you trade both of them?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's best case scenario.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
I wouldn't, but I think that they're both going to get offers. We may not have heard of one for Chase Young yet, but give me a break like they're not going to get one. The question is what it will be.
Yeah.
Would you trade both if they give you what you think are viable offers for them?
Absolutely. I think that's best case scenario. Because if that's the case, you're going to get enough ammo to actually make some noise in the draft to either move up to get a quarterback or move up to get a
then you don't have
stud or
you don't have a stud defensive end anymore. You better hope Andre Jones is that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which may or may not be the case.
May or
we
may
haven't
not
seen him play. I don't know.
But here's the thing. This goes back to what I've had the thought process with this team has been. How much money can you invest in one defensive line, especially when it seems like every other year they suck? So for me, I'm kind of done with this whole put this defensive line together thing. You've signed 2 of them, and I think you've signed the 2 best ones and most consistent ones on the line, by the way, right? You would agree with me that Allen and Payne are the most consistent ones.
This
maybe not this season,
year
but
has been a little surprising that they haven't personally dominated the way that they have.
Right.
And the weird part is that Chase has been way more disruptive. So you'd think that would have collectively happened.
Right.
It hasn't. So I'm a little confused by that.
Sure.
I agree, though, in general, over the last few years, they've been the focal point of the defense. They might not get the attention for it, but they have been.
Yes. And so, once again, you're going to have to go to them.
And you've already paid them.
Correct.
Like they're under contract.
And you're going to have to explain to them, we gave you this money. You need to step up big now because whoever's playing next to you aren't those 2 guys. But at the same time, that should still open up for whoever you've got. All I'm saying is I'm done with this whole defensive line thing. I'm getting sick of it every single year that we constantly say it's the best unit that this defense has, and you look at a year like this year where they're not dominating games anymore.
All right, last thing on this. Okay. You're the new owner, right? If you trade Montez Sweat, it's a shockwave, and it's a sign to your team, and it's a signal of what's coming, right? If you trade Chase Young, though, it's the same, but it's different. He is a superstar.
Sure.
He may not play like one exactly yet, but we all know what he represents, what he could be, and you're walking away from that as your first big move as the owner of the team. The first big on-the-field move is walking away from the former number 2 overall pick who happens to be a very popular figure and grew up here.
Yeah, sure.
So does that complicate this?
No, because the fan base, half the fan base, I feel like has turned on Chase Young anyway, so it's going to be a 50-50 reaction. But also, if I'm them, I go full PR on this one, and I deflect the hell out of it. And I would say, if I was ownership, yeah, well, the front office kind of put us in between a rock and a hard place by not picking up his 5th-year option. So we had to make a decision on it. I would go full, we had to make a call because the previous administration did something that we needed to react to. That's what I would do.
So the other delineation I would make is this. I would trade Montez Sweat to just about anybody not named the Eagles or the Cowboys.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Including the Ravens.
Yeah.
Because they need a pass rusher.
Yeah, for sure.
I would not trade Chase Young to the Ravens.
I think if the offer was the best one, I still would.
I think I would play a little bit of we're shipping you to a place where we may not see you.
Sure.
And that feels important to us too. Like if the Bears came along and offered one of those first-round picks that they got in their pocket right now, I would think differently about them as opposed to sending them up the street. For the same reasons I would say there was all you people who thought we were going to get Lamar, they were never going to trade him here.
Right.
They can't have him play down the road.
The difference, though,
he's a quarterback,
right?
And I get it, but like, I don't know that your first move is to send him right up the street to the other team that you do compete for eyeballs with.
Chase Young's not moving people from this team to that team. There's no way. Absolutely no way.
And I do not want to walk around Montgomery County and see 99.
No one's
purple
doing that.
Jerseys.
I'm sorry, nobody's doing that. Not in this era. The Dan Snyder era, maybe, but this era, no, that ain't happening. And the other side of that coin is, once again, this ownership group's smart. You go full PR and you go, you know what? We love Chase. We wish him the best of luck, but I think a change of scenery was going to be best for everybody. And if that change of scenery is right up the road, fine. I think everybody would believe what they're saying because I honestly think that might be the actual case with Chase. He feels like he is ripe to be the type of player when they ship him somewhere, he's going to thrive all over again because it's going to be like a brand new, NFL life for him.
We'll see, guys. I'm now starting to pretty much feel like one of them will be moved.
One of them has to be moved. It's asset management.
Yeah.
You have to get something for one of them because at least you can frame.
They never could pay all. We've said this from the get-go.
Yes.
You never could. Even if they all worked out, you never can pay all of them.
In newsflash, they haven't warranted paying both of them either. So that's the other side of this coin is that they haven't played well enough for you to twist yourself into trying to pay them all.
That agent's very busy this week.
Yes.
With a lot of balls in the air.
Knows he's getting paid though at some point.
For both of them. They're both going to get their money. It's just a question of where. Here, somewhere else, right now, in 6 months, who knows? Yeah. All right, we'll preview the Buccaneers and the Bills next. Brad Watch the Show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. The Suns are playing the Lakers tonight without Bradley Beal or Devin Booker now.
Oh, already.
It's already started.
KD show.
Bradley Beal has not made his debut. He has back tightness. He didn't play in their season opening win, so we're waiting to see when our old friend Brad... everybody loves Brad. We'll see what he plays for the Suns. And Booker apparently hurt his foot in the season opener, so he's out tonight.
Got it.
So it's the KD show against the Lakers. Everyone's mad at the Lakers because Anthony Davis didn't score in the second half of their first game against the Nuggets.
Saw quite a few parlays get blown up last night.
LeBron apparently only played 29 minutes, something like that.
That's been his thing, though.
Yeah, and then when he was on the bench, I guess AD wasn't doing anything. So everybody's mad at him after game one. Game one, they're mad at him. Game one.
On the LeBron thing, I saw the report yesterday, and it was like, oh, the Lakers plan to only play him 26 to 29 minutes. And I think I had said this to you last year because I watched a lot of West Coast basketball last year. I wonder why. That's what they were doing with him.
You should bet on hockey this year, by the way, but go on. You're killing it.
Stay away from that
for
reasons. But when it comes to them, that's what he was doing last year. And it worked. He was actually putting up the same stat lines playing less minutes. He was doing that all the second half last year. So
they are load managing him in a different way. And he doesn't sit out games. He plays.
Yes.
He's just not playing 48 minutes because he knows in May he has to play 48
and guess what?
minutes.
He should. He's LeBron. He's almost 40. That's fine.
Yeah. He's in his victory lap. He already passed Kareem.
Yes, exactly.
I still feel like in the end they're going to be there. Watch.
Maybe.
Watch. The trade deadline, they'll go get somebody. Watch.
Okay.
Just like they did last year. They will.
Either way, what I'm getting at, though, is Harden doesn't need to have load management because he takes nights off by himself sometimes. No. So, yeah.
Eagles injury report today added 3 players. James Bradbury, Zach Cunningham, Jordan Davis, all limited today. Okay. Bradley Roby, who is their third corner, didn't practice again with the shoulders. He may be out. So it would be Slay and I don't know who. And Bradbury has had a rough year. It's kind of catching up to him a little bit. So just, look, things happen. You never know. Their defense was real beat up when we played them the first time. Seems like they're real beat up still. So who knows?
Sure, pal.
Sling and Sam might pull it together.
Sure, pal. Sling and Sam. You can't call him that.
I know. Let's see. Tonight we do have Buccaneers and Bills. Mm-hmm. The Buccaneers have become what we thought they would be, which is they can't really score very much.
Right.
The Bills did have a weird one against the Giants. Before we had a weird one against the Giants, so did they.
Yes.
So did they. They easily could have lost. They're very up and down. They looked terrible in that opening night, then world beaters for 3 weeks. And then the last few weeks, they've been very beatable. But on a short turnaround, Bills Mafia, Baker, Bills, I think, will win probably by 2 touchdowns. I think.
These games all year have been low scoring, have been sloppy. Buccaneers
24-6.
Oh, that's a lot.
Baker, bad one. They have no running game. None.
I'll parse it down a little bit. Give me a 20-9.
Okay, yeah. But they win.
Where they can't score a touchdown.
They can't
score a couple field goals.
Yeah. Baker gets very mad at some point. That's what I got for you tonight. Bills are winners.